webinar before, and most of us who went to Windcall also got some meditation practices or, fell into deeper breathing practices. And this practice is really just to bring us present here and now. For some of you, maybe you just woke up. For some of you, it's been a few hours of wakefulness. And for many of us right now, one of the things that's been happening is waking up and coming online to multiple crises that are happening, and then reacting and just going through our day as like how do I react to everything? And I want this call to sort of carve out a little space inside of that allows us to bring our attention where we want it to be. So I'm standing. You can sit or stand for this, whichever way feels best for you. And you just want to have your feet on the ground. And really, if you're sitting, make sure that you're nicely balanced on your sit bones. So you're not like all crocked to one side or the other, but just really get your butt under you solidly and your sit bones in there. And then just with your next breath, really just invite more space between each of your vertebrae coming up the back, and really feel yourself as a long body, right? As a body that reaches from the core of the earth. You're a line that goes from the core of the earth all the way up through this space that you walk in, and all the way out through the top, all the stars, right? That we actually are on that line. And how long do you allow yourself to be? In the traditions I practice, length gives us dignity, right? And it's one of the things that society is constantly trying to eke away from us. So one of our resistance moves is always come into our dignity. And then holding that, right? Really feel the center of your being is just below your belly button, right? That's the way our bodies are structured for the most part, is centered in this torso part of the body. And right under the belly button, for those who stand up, that's where that center is. Yeah. And then from that place, that center, that belly, that core of the body, unfurl and open from side to side. So as long as you are, how can you be that wide? And really see if you can feel sensations on the outer edges of your arms. Might be your shirt, or might be a cool breeze or warm sunlight. And from hip to hip, from knee to knee, from the outer edges of your feet. And one way to get more length and more width is to relax your body, right? So sometimes we think, oh, I need to do more. I need to effort and push myself out. All we're trying to access right now is your inherent width, what's already there. And remind ourselves that we have the right to take up space. We have the right to be as big as we want to be. Good, and now you have your length, you have your width, and we're just going to center in depth. So from back to front, front to back. And I like to start inside the body, what I call the miraculous core of the body. So see if you can tune in and feel your heart beating. And if you're digesting or processing inside your body, just really gratitude, offer some gratitude towards that work that happens below the radar. And then out behind us is billions of years of wisdom and survival and evolution. And then out ahead of us is the mystery, the unknown, the future that we're going to shape together. And in this way, we get to place ourselves on that non-linear cycle of time. Here we are, here we are, here we are, here. And then bring into the center of your body as much as you know about your purpose on this planet and your purpose as a human being right now. Are you here to heal, to tell stories, to tell the truth, to bring peace, to bring light, to bring love? Really let that purpose fill you up from the center of your body all the way out to your edges, so that anyone who interacts with you on this phone call or in the world just feels that emanating off of you. And then open your eyes if you've closed them. It's one of the things we want to do, is be able to be centered and be in connection with each other. And we're going to go around to the people on the call, and I'm just going to ask each person to share one word of your mood and something that you're looking for as you come onto the call today. What are you needing right now? And Rachel, why don't we start with you?
Great. Hello, everyone. It is also snowing. I'm in Portland, Oregon right now. It's snowpocalypse because Portland's not quite used to dealing with snow. But my mother is always prepared, so we always have a lot of food. I'm sorry I'm taking up a little bit more time, but I actually forgot to go through a little bit of a short tech go over with Zoom.
Okay.
So for the folks, I'm just going to do a quick tour on the screen. For those of you who are on your computers, you'll notice that there is a menu on the bottom part. And I would suggest that for the most time, so that we can focus as much on Adrienne as a facilitator, that you might want to mute yourselves until the time when we're going to be doing some sharing. And that mute button is that microphone on the lower left of your screen. If you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing, when you click on that, it'll mute you. For folks who are on the phone, I would also suggest that you put yourselves on mute, because that way whoever is doing the speaking is going to be on the forefront on the video part. There are other links that you're going to see on the bottom. If you see the chat button flashing orange, it means that there is a chat message that's going on. So when you click on that, it should show up on the right side of your screen. I'm not sure if it was shared earlier, but Viviana is recording this for Windcall purposes. And I am a Windcall alumni as well. I was a 2012 Windcall alumni at Blue Mountain Center. I am clearly focusing on tech right now. That is what my focus is. That was one of the questions, right? And what am I looking for? I am looking forward to really listening to and getting the wisdom that everyone's going to be sharing today. Every single webinar that I've been on has been illuminating, and that's part of the reason why I'm dedicated and committed to supporting putting these webinars together, and making sure that Windcall has this medium for sharing as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. See, Joyce, you're muted.
I just unmuted myself. You know, it's funny, I'm here trying to figure out exactly what it is I want. I mean, there's so many things going on that I feel like what I need to do right now, both for external and for internal, is to decide on a few things that are really my priorities over this next time. And I don't think I'm there yet, but definitely using practices like meditation and exercise and interactions with other organizers and with family and friends to keep my level of strength and my centered feeling as strong as possible. And then the one other thing is really to be clear about where I think I can actually do the most and have the most impact. So I'm really thinking about limiting in a way, but in an expansive way.
Brilliant. That's great. Joy.
Hi. My mood right now is a little achy.
Hmm.
And it's great. Thank you for the centering practice. And what I'm looking for is inspiration.
Great. Thank you. Ron.
Yeah, hi all. My mood right now, I guess, is of transition. I'm going through a career transition, so that's I'm feeling a lot of stress with wrapping things up, but also a lot of excitement with where I'm going. Um, and the second part is kind of something we're looking for. Is that right? Like something.
Yeah, like what brought you onto the call today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did my Windcall residency back in 13, so it was about 3 years ago, and I haven't made it to any of the webinars because it's always been so busy. And I told myself I'm gonna make it this time and just gonna make it happen. So I'm here, and
Awesome.
yeah, glad to be
I made a webinar. My day is good. Good.
here.
Awesome. So, Erica. Oh, there's two Ericas. The Erica that's not Erica Woodland yet.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My name's Erica. I live in southern New Mexico. I found out about this through my boss, Vicky Galbeca, who was just at Windcall.
Great.
And I'm feeling pretty centered and relaxed. I just did some meditation and took a shower, and I'm eating breakfast, so feeling good. And something I'd like to get out of this, I think, is how to be strong in my sense of hope and of feeling. I've been feeling a lot of hope lately, actually, in the midst of a lot of people who are feeling really distraught. And so, like, how to hold space for other people's feelings when I'm feeling centered and not, like, soak up everyone's stress and not share my hope in a way that shuts down other people's feelings, is what I'm hoping to get out.
Awesome. Thank you. E. Renko.
Hi, Adrienne. This is Liza from One Life in Oakland.
Oh, hi, Liza.
I know we've never met.
Oh, hugs.
Oh, yes. So I'm here because it was a chance to be in almost your presence finally.
Yay.
And also because this is the work that I do as well, is facilitating sustainability practice and resilience and healing for frontline folks. And the chance to sit at your feet in that regard was a blessing. So thank you.
Oh, it's so exciting to.
And I just finished reading both the Parables books by Octavia Butler, so I'm kind of steeped in that.
Yay. Awesome. Are you hopping on later tonight for the phone call?
If I'm home tonight, I will. Akanati's having their annual thing, and
Oh, good.
Either I'll be there or on the line.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Myrna. Myrna might be on mute.
Hi. Yeah.
There.
No, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah. I was having difficulty unmuting myself. I came late to the call, so I'm sorry I didn't, but I think that you asked about how do we feel or today and what we are looking for.
Or your mood today, and what are you looking for on the call?
Yeah. Well, actually today I'm very calm. It has been very hectic days, but I've been doing some yoga and meditation lately. So today's, I feel very good, very calm. And I came to the call because I have my residency in 2010, and then I also was part of the board for a while of Windcall, and I really miss Windcall. And again, I've been missing a lot of calls, but I made the intentional effort to participate today because I need some sort of refreshing on Windcall practices.
Awesome. Great. Welcome. Melissa Green. Melissa, you might be on mute. I hear curious sounds, but I don't think it's quite Melissa's talking. All right, we'll come back and see if Melissa comes back. Erica Woodland.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling a deep stillness. But I think just underneath it is some really intense exhaustion. And I'm here, first of all, just a moment to see your face, Adrienne, which is really sweet. And thank you, Viviana, for the invitation. I'm here to really increase my commitment around my own sustainability and resilience, and starting to look at the ways that I am sabotaging myself around those goals.
Awesome. We'll get into that. Great. Hillary Allen disappeared. All right. And then there's someone with a Portland phone number.
Shakti Monroe from
Hi.
Portland. Good morning, everyone. Hi. My mood is grateful. I'm also going through transition. I am the founder of the International Center for Nutritional Childbearing, an infant mortality international movement for birth justice and reproductive justice. And I'm looking for really, I would say, connectedness out of this call.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And we have a Kay Fernandez. Kay Fernandez or Melissa Green, or is there anyone else who just wants to bring themselves in? All right. If you change your mind, you can always just jump in and be like, I'm ready. Now I'm ready to tell you hello. Awesome. So we're going to spend time in two different areas today. One is in the area of contradictions, and the other is in the area of resilience. These have been two major frameworks that I have found really useful coming out of this election. And I'll just say briefly to frame up this election moment. I think I, like many people, was heading into the election there's going to be compromise. Engaging with the electoral process is compromise. And so I'm ready for the compromise I'm going to have to make. And I thought that compromise was going to be a Clinton compromise. And so then coming into Trumpocalypse has been kind of a whirlwind, and seeing the different ways that my community has responded, either diving into action or freezing into inaction, or falling into deep depression, falling into deep fear cycles. I think there's been a real okay, everything is actually rapidly changing. The bubble is popping. All the farce is coming off of all of our systems, right? And for some people, it's really invigorating. So I have met people who are like, I feel focused and I feel hopeful and I feel clear. And for other folks, it's actually been really fogifying. It's been like, I was really clear and I thought I had it together, but maybe now I need to drop everything and go stop walls from being built or do something else. So one of the things that has helped me has been this idea of understanding what are the contradictions that I'm walking with, that I'm holding. And as much as possible, trying to relinquish a right-wrong framework, that there's a right side and a wrong side, but really leaning into how do I get wider and go bigger in order to be able to hold those contradictions in real time. So I want to ask you all to do an exercise, and what you'll need for this exercise is this and this. Something to write on, something to write with. And you can do it electronically, although I find, I just dropped my pen. I find that when doing spirit work, I really appreciate the act of having to actually use a pen or pencil or crayon or whatever it is on paper, your body goes through a slightly different process in that kind of writing. So an invitation, not a a requirement. And you're gonna create your paper like this. So on one side, let's see if you can see this. On one side, you're gonna split the paper into two columns, and on one side, there's a list for urgent things that are happening, and on the other, there's a list of long-term things that are happening. And go ahead and make your paper match that. So I'll just hold it up here. Urgent and long-term. Good. And what we're going to do, we're just going to take some time. I'm going to do this with you. You can go back and forth between the two. You can just do all your urgent things first and then all your long-term. But I want you to really look at in your life and the kind of pressures and requests and things you need to do. I want you to write down the things that are showing up as like, these are urgent needs. So, I follow Rebecca Solnit on Facebook, and every day she's been posting like daily democracy action now, right? And I'm like, yes, I need to do this right now. Whatever else I'm doing, I need to drop that. I need to call DC and tell them, look, here's how I feel. At the same time, I have the long-term concerns, right? Also, I'm trying to write a very centered book about emergent strategy or do something else that's like, this is work that I feel is part of my life's purpose. Or my best friend just had a baby and I was her doula, and so I got to be there for the first 3 weeks of the baby's life, and now it feels really important to me to be building and maintaining that relationship. And she lives 4 hours from me, so how do I make sure I'm building in the time for that long-term relationship building with that child who I think is going to need me, and I know I need her. Okay. So all of these are like pulling me. Yeah. Everybody feel clear on the instructions? Yeah. So let's do 5 minutes writing it all out. And then I'll give you the next instruction. Do you want music while you write?
Yes.
Yes? All right. I'll put on something that's not too distracting. Honeycomb, drip amber is a sign, the sweetness that is you. Honeycomb, and I'm a humble bee that brings the pollen to your gilded lips. Without a doubt, before the morning comes, I dream a bit of you. Honeycomb, encircling with moss, surface like honeydew drops forming. And I would feel compelled to stay. Honeycomb, 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 oh, honeycomb. Beckoning with fickle majesty, whims are always met. Honeycomb, and I'm the lucky fool, courtly just, but the jokes are all on me.
And I'm reminded of your words. All the stars burning in the sky. How can anyone see just one? All the stars burning in the sky. How can anyone see just one? Honeycomb. Honeycomb. Honeycomb.
Hi. How's it going over there? Are your lists very long? You're like, They're okay. So one of the things that I find really helps with this is to understand that a lot of times the short term, the urgent work can actually be steps that help develop that longer term work, or the long term work can be a way to help create a container or a foundation for the more urgent short term work. So what I want you to do now is make some messes on your page and draw some arrows or some connections, right? That these two things are not actually binary, right? So it's not a binary between the urgent and the long term. All of these things are probably important and need your attention and energy. But like one example that I'll give here is I put that I wanted to, in my urgent column, be able to challenge racism in real time. Like, how do I have sustained energy to be able to challenge racism in real time in an urgent way and stop Trump and address what's happening in Syria, and address growing Black Lives Matter needs. And then all of that was an urgent space. And then in my long-term work, I put creating conditions for the health of my nibblings, which nibblings is this incredible word that I was taught from Tanuja Jagannath in Chicago, which is a gender-neutral or gender-free way to speak of the children of your siblings. So that it's not like, you're my nephew or you're my niece. It's just like, you're not boy, 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 girl, girl, girl. You're just child of my sibling that I adore, and I want to nibble your face, so you're my nibbling. And I realized that all of that urgent work is part of what I need to do in order to create those conditions for them, right? Like it all flows towards that end. So I'll show you what it looks like on the page. Right, as I start to actually draw an image so that it's flowing, okay? So I want you all to do that with your page, and the arrows can go back and forth as many times as you want, but really make some connections between the things on your page. And I'll give you 3 minutes to do that.
night I wake up, before I put on my makeup, I say a little prayer for you. While combing my hair now, and wondering what dress to wear now, I say a little prayer for you. Wherever you stay in my heart, and I will love you forever and ever. We never will part. Oh, how I love you. Together, together is how it must be to live without you. Would only be heartbreak for me. All for the best, dear. And while I'm riding, I think of us, dear. I say a little prayer for you. At work, I just take time, and all through my coffee break time, I say a little prayer for you. Forever and ever, you stay in my heart, and I will love you forever and ever. We never will part. Oh, how I love you. Together, together is how it must be to live without you. Would only be heartbreak for me.
How are we doing? Are folks about done? So one of the reasons I really love doing a contradiction practice is because I think that the world we live in right now sets us up into this constant competition between reacting to what's happening and really being able to hold on to much longer term work. It also sets us up to feel like we cannot hold complex positions. And when we start to feel like, oh, I can't hold a complex position, I can't feel two ways at once about something, then we become very limited in what our options are. And we become very limited in the kind of community that we can generate together. Because we start to feel like I can only generate community with those who align on every single exact thing that I've decided to do, which leads to divisiveness, right? It's like, oh, you're not down for the 13-point action plan, you know, and it's like, no, but I love 4 of the points, and, you know, trying to figure out how we work together. But one of the ways that we practice this, you know, before I think we practice coming into relationship with others, we have to come into right relationship with ourselves, right? If we cannot allow for contradiction inside ourselves, it becomes really impossible to allow for in a relationship with one other person, much less in a movement of hopefully millions of people where we are all complex. So I wanted to ask if there was anyone who wanted to share something you learned as you looked at this complex set of contradictions that you carry. I'm like looking at all your little pictures as you look away. I'll call on someone.
I'll share, Adrienne. This is Viviana. I really love what you just said about right relationship with ourselves, because I noticed that some of the pieces that I had on the urgent column, I hadn't quite articulated in the long-term column that I needed to strengthen my own sustainability. I was focusing all outward, what I needed to do for others. And there were a couple, you know, so everything was going towards supporting the sustainability of my organization and others. And then there were a couple of pieces and I'm like, oh, why are they dangling? And I was like, oh, my own sustainability.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that's one of the biggest ones, is that there's this weighing how much we can give in the current moment without depleting our whole life. And I actually think we see this, it's one of the most heartbreaking aspects to me of being in the organizing world, is we see people doing a lot of urgent work that may or may not be tied into a long-term plan or a long-term hope, and they spend all their life energy. And we lose folks very early because we're like watching us give it all away. And I think about that. How do you kind of create a little container or protect that fundamental flame and keep feeding it and giving it breath so that you have fire to offer all of these frontline spaces? Anyone else want to share anything you just noticed or learned in that?
Kind of as we're talking now, I'm mindful of the difference between time urgent and importance urgent.
Great.
Because when I started my list, the first things were like medical appointments, grant writing for next year, end of year appeal, business things. And then as I stayed with it, it was the deeper heart things that are important in terms of meaning, as opposed to clock.
Yes, that's super beautiful. And I think that so often, whenever I have people do work like this, where they have to like slow down and like look at what's actually taking up space in your mind and notice how much stuff is someone else has decided it's important and they're placing that on you, versus from your deep inner well, you decided it's actually important and the best use of your miraculous life force. And those tend to be the places where you actually get the most bang for your buck, as it is, putting your life energy into it. So I often try to tell people, like, who told you that's urgent or who told you that's important? Do most of you work in the nonprofit or organizing sphere? So another piece of this is a lot of times funders tell us what is urgent and set up these cycles for our time. And so I often enjoy coaching people to kind of push back, not just to be difficult, but to push back in a real way of just like, if this is not the cycle that your organization is actually working on, if this is not the rate of change that your community is actually moving in, how do you stay in that dance of like, a report in 3 months will be more relevant than a report today, right? Things like that actually create a little bit more spaciousness. So homework to take away for the contradictions practice is to start to really tune in anytime you start to feel like there's two things in your life, in your mind, in your awareness that are at odds with each other, that both need to happen. And you're like, I have to choose one or the other. And really starting to notice whenever you get into that sort of false binary space, and ask yourself the question, can one of these serve the other, right? How does one of these serve the other? How do I do this urgent thing in a way that serves my long-term needs and goals? Sound good? Willing to try that out? And feel free to use it on other people. I do this with other people all the time where I'm like, false binary. I'm sure it annoys my friends at this point, but but it also always helps me to notice. I'm like, we've gotten ourselves stuck in a false binary. And what we're actually in is a contradiction, and we can hold it. We can take a deeper breath right now and hold it. So the next piece I want to do with you all is a guided meditation that will focus on resilience. And I'll tell you a little bit about where we're going with it by sharing that my resilience practice and what really, really gets me through a lot of these impossible conditions and impossible spiritual challenges that we're in right now is the ocean. And I start off the call by saying I'm in Detroit. So I'm not sitting on a beach watching the ocean all day. And yet I make my way to the ocean several times a year. And the metaphor of ocean, the existence of ocean, really gives me the room to live my life and to be complex. And the way I work with ocean is I actually imagine the whole ocean is kind of sloshing back and forth inside the center of my body. And I rock myself back and forth. So when I'm actually like, this is overwhelming and I can't handle it, it helps me so much to remember that every single day, the ocean has storms raging in one part of it while another part is totally calm and totally clear. And at different levels of the ocean, there is fecundity and abundant life. And then there'll be other parts where there's nothing for miles and just empty space. And that I, in the same way, am that level of complex, and I can tap into my storm energy, if I want to call that out, or I can tap into my calm, still energy. And I can keep moving like a wave inside of myself. And remember that all the other water energy of the world is always flowing towards ocean, right? So if there's something that I need, I just need to be patient. It's coming through the cycle and it's coming my way. So doesn't that feel helpful? Like to just be like, oh, the ocean. Whew. Yes, good. So we're going to do a guided meditation, brief. And the idea of it is to help you tap into what is your core resilient space that you could actually use to draw on when you need this. So for this one, you don't need any paper, you don't need anything else. Just get yourself calmly situated. And hello to any new people who've come on. It's great to have you here. We're just going to do this meditation. So I ask you to close your eyes and use each of your breaths to drop yourself in a little lower in your body. So if your attention is mostly around your eye band and in that upper part of your brain, use your breath to drop down into your cheeks and soften there. And then use the next breath to drop into your throat and really feel some relaxation around this communication tool, right? There's been so much that needs to be said lately. So just really give some breath and spaciousness to that part of yourself which is trying to express complex ideas and desperate needs and truths. And then drop further in, down into your chest. And what I like to think of as our inner black hole, right? The inner blackness, the massive mystery inside. And go into the dark inside yourself. And really feel yourself as in a cave inside yourself, in the dark, in the quiet. And notice if you feel a rhythm for yourself. It might be a heartbeat rhythm. It might be a rocking wave rhythm. It might be like a symphony kind of rhythm. And without any overthinking, really notice what is the first symbol or image from nature that comes to mind. And does that aspect of nature have emotion? And if it has emotion, see if you can let yourself move with it. and be in rhythm with it. See if you can actually let it fill you up. Beautiful. And on your next out breath, let your eyes open. And we're just gonna go around and hear from people. What is your resilience? What does your body know about your resilience? We can start with Shafia.
Greetings. I like the fact that you said, notice my own personal rhythm. And actually, I saw a lot of things. I saw myself just walking in a quiet cave, but then all of a sudden I got this eagle, and I actually do like eagles. So I decided I was going to claim that eagle, stretched out, very powerful, independent as my rhythm. And I'm not really sure what that means.
Beautiful.
But I came on saying they're looking for connectedness, and interesting enough, eagles really don't connect. They tend to really be loners, it appears. So I don't know, but it was an interesting exercise. I'm going to stick with the eagle.
It's also good. One of the ways eagles do connect is in parenting. Eagles are like fiercely, fiercely protective over their young. So that might be a good place to look.
Well, I'm a midwife, so that might work.
Yeah, exactly.
And a mother of 7 and a grandmother of 9. That might all fit into the whole
Awesome.
plan.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Erica Woodland.
Yeah, I tend to go like intergalactic with this kind of thing, but what came to me this time, which is not a surprise, is the tree. And I've been pretty obsessed with trees for the past like 5 years, but there's this piece around solidity and movement at the same time, and the ability to go deep down and also to stretch up at the same time. So it made me think about what are the places in my life where I'm really solid and grounded, and like those places that are non-negotiable, and where are those places where there's more movement and flexibility, and where do I need to grow deep and up.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that trees are such a good one for holding contradictions, because they're always doing all the things all at once. And that's great. Hopeful Erica.
The thing that came to mind for me, and often does, is a mountain. I grew up around mountains, and I think I've always found a lot of peace there. But the question for me was around movement, because I think of mountains as incredibly solid. But I've also been thinking about this idea of the fact that mountains move very slowly over time. And I've been thinking about that as a metaphor for social change lately. So anyway, that's what came to mind for me.
I love that. Moving slowly. Yeah, it's all a matter of time. Like, I love when they do those time lapse things, and it's like, this is how it used to be and this is how it is now. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, that mountain has actually just been walking down the continent. Beautiful. Is there one or two other folks who want to share what you came up with? We've got a couple minutes before we can transition. I love all these happy faces. You're all smiling like,
I'll join with Erica. I'm a tree too, a redwood tree, and very, very tall. and in community with others. Redwoods don't grow alone very well. And everything you said about being rooted and moving and flexible, but still very sort of just beyond time too, like looking down on everything, like this is all just another cycle. And, you know, big redwood trees don't overreact to they're just sort of there.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. So we are at 12:55 right now, and so what we wanted to do was take a moment to check in with people. We can stay on for another half hour of more open conversation. If people have questions that they want to ask of me or of each other in the group, we can spend some time there. But we also wanted to just take a moment to also say if people are like, oh, this is where I need to leave off or close out. And I think Rachel or Viviana was going to do a little piece here. Is that right?
First, Rachel is going to share a little bit about logistics, and then I'll share a few words afterwards.
Great. Rachel on logistics.
Sorry, I had tech issues. I'm the tech person, and I had my own tech issues, so I am just coming through here.
Always happens that way.
Yes.
Yes.
I can
I'm
share.
sorry.
Can you share? I can share otherwise.
Yeah, can you, because I actually just got on.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, well, mainly we wanted to thank all of you for participating with us and with Adrienne. It was a very beautiful session for me, very helpful. And we really love to be in community with all of you and to continue these discussions into the next year in 2017. So we will be first sending you an evaluation to fill out online, and so please fill it out when you get it, so we get a sense of what works, what doesn't work. We will be starting a new teleconference series in the new year, and we will be probably doing a visioning session in the new year to think through different themes. So if you have different concerns or different topics that you would like to see addressed, please definitely share them with us. And also what we would like for you to share with us as well is that we really need your support to be able to continue the Staying Power series. And so we ask for your financial contribution as much as you can to help us continue with these series. And so the evaluation is going to have a link to our fundraising page with Network for Good. We try to have these series free to our alumni, and there's quite a few of you here on the call. And for others, we ask for a $10 minimum contribution, which is a donation if you can give. But that really helps us to continue with developing our programming. And if there's any more that you can contribute towards the resilience and well-being of Windcall as an organization, we really welcome it. Also, to let you know, you probably have seen the emails that have come through, is that we are going to be offering more refreshers to the alumni. We have a new site in California. A donor has provided her house in rural Sebastopol for a 1-week stay to touch base again with all of the Windcall practices and have some time. And you're welcome to go with your family or your partner as well. This is a mini Windcall, as we like to call them. So that's why they're refreshers of the longer residency. We also have another opportunity in why am I spacing out? The other opportunity, my goodness.
Tennessee.
In Tennessee, that's right.
Smoky Mountains.
I can see why politicians may have oops statements. Yes, so that one was our first refresher, actually. That was a timeshare condo that was shared, donated, gifted to Windcall by the late National Organizers Alliance on the first couple of weeks of January. So it's coming up. And it's 40 minutes away from the Highlander Center. So you can do some visiting while you're there. The one in Sebastopol is going to be the last week of January and the first week of February. And applications are due on December 22nd. And for those of you who are not Windcall alumni, the applications for residencies will be coming up in February or March of next year, and we welcome you to apply to be a Windcall resident, to be able to have a 3-week-long sabbatical, either in the Olympic Peninsula outside of Washington, outside of Seattle in Washington, and also at Rancho Gallina, which is a beautiful space outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. So thank you all. And as Adrienne mentioned, we are, and that is my cat right there, we will be going on into the last half hour, which is an optional time for discussion, more question and answer with Adrienne, and any other topics that you would like to deepen that have arisen from Adrienne's presentation. Thank you.
Actually, before we get into that, I just wanted to add that there was a question about whether or not the recording is going to be available. And I responded with yes, and we're probably going to have to try to figure out the technology to get that to be accessible to folks. I'm not sure if that's been figured out yet, but that's certainly one of the reasons why we like to have recordings, because I would want to watch the recording again since I missed not half, but a portion of it. The second thing is I am on the board of Windcall, and I'm also on the Staying Power Committee. And so I invite everyone to, if you have some brilliant ideas about what, things that we might be able to focus on for these, it's always welcome to welcome those ideas, as well as welcome your energy and time into planning and putting these together. The board has been working really hard, and Viviana's been working really hard to keep Windcall going. As we all know, it takes a team to make everything happen, and it's been really illuminating for me to be on the board. I just joined this year, so in not just being able to contribute to putting it together, but also really continuing to be encouraged and inspired to have our resilient practices and practice them. So yes, that's just my little pitch for everyone. Come and join us in putting this together.
Wonderful. So we seem to have just about everybody staying on, which is wonderful. And so, Adrienne, if you would like to take us back to the discussion that you opened up for us, and maybe give us a prompt question to continue the discussion. That's great.
Yes, I would love to open it up if people found that there were questions, learning edges, or something that came up for you that you were like, I'd actually like to offer this to the group. By Joyce, by Alexa, by Ron. Yeah, so just it's kind of, I'm a bit, your cat is so funny. Cats are so mysterious. So yeah, any questions or sort of additional wisdom that came up for people that you want to share?
This is Shafia speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was on mute. So I guess what I would like to say is that this is helpful because I've been very involved with reproductive justice for the last really 40 years and just have decided to reposition myself. So I left my nonprofit, which a lot of times my identity, to be honest, was built around just out there working these very important issues. And now I've pulled back to something different. And when I looked at my long-term and my urgent is one, decided the work I've done has been very instrumental around the issue of reproductive justice, particularly for Black women and women of color. So I'm writing books. That's my urgent, to have my 200-word draft done by the end of the month. But my question is how does a person move to their personal life around repositioning themselves, but still maintain, as I mentioned, came up with the connectedness. How do you still stay connected to the movement? I know you mentioned this too, you can kind of stay together, but I've been finding it difficult to be involved, particularly with the nonprofit movement, and then trying to reposition myself to do me, to be honest. So that's my dilemma, if you can get what I'm trying to say. That ego, that loneliness, that aloneness, but power at the same time.
Yeah, I love this question. In 2010, I think I left my last formal position with an organization, and in 2012 I actually took a sabbatical, and it was that was my major concern. It was just sort of how do I protect identity, ego, and how do I stay connected to the work or not become irrelevant, or even my ego is how do I become more relevant, and how do I become more relevant than I was in my organizing life as a person who's doing the things I love. And two things I'll offer, and then maybe other folks some stuff. One was that the world that I was in related to my nonprofit was so insular, so it felt like I was a somebody in that world. But actually, when I left it, I realized that it was so its own little bubble, and it was a beautiful bubble, and I really love that bubble. But I went to other organizing spaces, and people were like, "Oh, I didn't even know about that bubble," or I vaguely heard about it, but people hadn't been following the things that I thought were so important. And it was super humbling and it was super relieving. It was just sort of I was doing great work. It wasn't the most important work or the only work in the world. It was just really solid, great work.
Okay.
And so that, great. And the second thing I'll offer, and I think that's important, is to be right now it's the center of your world. And there'll be some relief with it being decentered, even while it still gets to be important. And this year, I've been able to celebrate as that organization supported Standing Rock and has supported Black Lives Matter. And I get to watch it flourish, and also still not the center of the world, right? But it's really good. The second thing I'll offer is that I found organizations that I wanted to give my time to for free. And that became the way that I was able to stay relevant or become more relevant, was that I needed to take away the pay part of it. So I still do my work that I get paid for out in the world, but I needed to find something that I believed in so deeply that I would work on it for nothing. I needed that for my spirit to remember that what I wanted to do for the world was not just my paid gigs. And for me, that was Black Organizing for Leadership and Dignity. And I just offered every year I'll facilitate your national gathering for free. I will coach, 3 people for free as a part of the program, or whatever is needed in that year. And that actually really helped me come back to movement in what has felt like a much more healthy and organic way. Even though I still do paid work from movements, but Bold finally was we're going to start paying you because, you're doing a lot here. But from my spirit, it helps to be like, I want to do this. I want to do this for free. I
Right,
want to
right.
time. And then I give my time locally in Detroit to holding healing space, holding writing space. So those are two things that I found. Are there other people on the call who have best practices or whatever we want to call it around this one? Experiential wisdom to offer? No? Good. How's that landing with you?
That was great. I'm doing something similar like that, finding other venues. It's only been 6 months that I have retired from my CEO position by choice. I retired because it's been my life and trying to realize that I needed to spread myself other places. So those are all great things for me to consider and to, see what parts I want to begin doing. So thank you.
Great. Other thoughts or questions or riffing? And Luisa, I wrote you this, but if you type a question in the chat, then I will, or type a thought or something, then I'll say it out.
Hi, thank you. You might be able to hear me. Thank you.
Yes,
I kept poking and it worked.
Awesome.
I could add to the person's question from someone who has also taken time off to write that it's a little addictive, but I do track the weekly newsletters of my favorite organizations. I'm in the DC area, in the Washington DC Center, Empower DC. So I guess it's my new variation of lurking. But it just keeps me feeling like I'm not losing touch.
Right.
That's awesome.
Thank you. It's helpful also.
Any other thoughts, feelings, wisdoms, questions?
I have a question. So I would love people's wisdom and guidance around the ways that we might sabotage all of our best plans around actually being balanced and having sustainability in our life and whatever self-care means.
Yes. Awesome. Can I ask you a question about that?
Of course.
Have you already done work around, I often think of it as voices, right? So there's like the voice that's saying like, here's what I really want to do. And this is what would be best for me. And usually sabotage comes in as like other voices that are saying other things. It's like, I live in Detroit. I'm like, one of my voices like, go to the gym. That would be healthy. And then another voice is like, it's cold and you don't need to do that today and you're so tired. And like, there's all these other voices that feel very, very smart and loving are like, don't go to the gym basically. But I've done a lot of work around, here's what those voices represent. Like, here's where they come from. Have you done some work around like, what are the voices that create sabotage systems?
I haven't. And I think if I could slow down to even listen to the voices or know that there's voices, that would be helpful, because for me, it feels like these habitual responses where I'm like, I already set up, I have a goal around no more than 4 meetings in a day. And then I'm like, why the hell did I just schedule 7 meetings? So it's just like integrating these things that I am like deeply committed to into daily practice. But like, yeah, I'm not even aware of maybe those conflicting voices.
Yeah.
I'm like responding to people who need something.
Yeah. So like if we were to walk through it, right? So you've got 4 things scheduled and a 5th thing comes up, right? Erica, we really need you to be on this 5th meeting and like no one else is going to do. What goes through your head in that moment?
It's not even in my awareness that I am going against my own boundary. So that's part of what it is. And I'm in a place where I am course correcting now. So I'm like, I agree to all these things. And now I'm like, my bad. Like, I can't. But I'm trying to get these things to happen in real time. And so I'm sure there's like a deeper layer of work that's connected to that. But I'm like, I'm really struggling on that level.
Well, the places that I would get really curious, one would be in like heightening your awareness as stuff is happening, right? So whether it's like a reflection practice at the end of each day could be really useful around this. It's just like, today, did I uphold what I thought I was going to uphold in my self-commitments or not? And not having judgment around it, like not being like, I fucked up, I sabotaged myself, but just sort of like, what happened today? How can I get curious about it? How can I see what happened as data? It's all data. This is my thing. This is my little sci-fi self. And I'm like, it's all data. And if you learn from that data, it's not a failure. If you don't learn from it, then it can start to accumulate and feel like failure. But if you're like, I just had 3 days in a row where I did 6 meetings. How can I get really curious about what happened and how I ended up in those 6 meetings? And a crumb I will leave you is, in my life, my overextension has often come from well-intentioned ego. So there's been a real sense of, they need me. They said they needed me. I'm the only one who can do this, right?
Yeah.
And the part of me that believes that doesn't even imagine that something else is possible. And then the part of me that has successfully stepped back from stuff is always like, oh, look, not like I'm replaceable, but there's other people doing this work who are amazing, and I can actually hold a boundary, right? The other crumb would be, this is tied to boundaries.
Right.
I often find that the same patterns happen in our personal lives and in our professional lives. So sometimes it's like hard to fix in one, but you can really see it clearly in the other. The work you do on either territory will help the other one. So you might be like, I need to fortify my capacity to hold boundaries in my work life, and look in your personal life for places where you can get that intimate practice into your system.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Do other folks have thoughts on this, Liza?
Slowing things down has been helpful for me.
Yeah.
My autopilot response is always, oh, well, if I can, then yes. Like if there's not physically something else written in my calendar during that time slot. And it took me a long time, and I'm still working on it, but instead of saying yes or no right away, to say, let me get back to you.
Yay.
My sanity tends to kick in after the call rather than during the call, right? So if I say, let me get back to you, then I have time to take a breath and say, is this sane? Is this possible? Is this going to cost something? Do I really want to do this? Can I shift something else to make it possible? Or is there somebody else that I know who could actually be a really great resource for whatever it is they're trying to do? And then when I make the response, if it's a no, I can say, but you know who you really should check with? And I'll be glad to send an email to introduce the two of you, or, whatever. But that creating more that pause time for myself, rather than feeling like I have to answer immediately and then regretting, like, what have I done? Been really helpful.
I love that. It also reminds me of noticing the things you enjoy and don't enjoy. I think can also be really
right.
So I just did this yesterday. I was on a meeting, and I was like, I had been it was with a group of people that I really like, but I had been dreading the meeting, and my attention kept drifting off during the meeting. And finally I was like, I think I need to not be a part of this anymore. And I'm not part of it for the right reasons. Like I like being around y'all, but like the content is not what is compelling for my life right now. And I said it in the moment, and I felt kind of like, and everyone was like, that's totally great. That's totally fine.
Right.
Take care of yourself or whatever. And I was like, oh God, like I've been suffering, like just in such dread. So I also think like I can do more work if I'm enjoying that work. Like I can actually go above what I think is my capacity. But if I'm doing work that's really like not serving that longer vision, I don't enjoy it. I'm like, I just did one meeting. I need 4 baths before I can do anything else. So.
I agree. I think we have to be willing to admit and embrace the fact that we have the right to have a passion for something. And that's what I've been developing into. And I decided to move on. I needed to know that it's okay for me to say no. And I've been a yes person for a long time. So no, I'm only doing so many meetings a week or a day or donations or whatever it is. And then not feeling guilty, knowing that the world does not revolve around me. They'll be okay.
It's going to be all right. And
right.
I love that your no makes way for your yes. I tell people all the time, like, your no makes your yes more authentic. It makes your yes visceral. It makes your yes believable to other people, because they're not just like, we know if we ask Erica, she gonna do it. It's like, oh, we know that Erica will say no if it's not working, and that means that when we get a yes, it's like, yes, Erica really wants to do this.
And I think on a spiritual level, I have a little piece on my wall that says, as you mentioned, when I say no to you, I say yes to me to do things. But also, when I say no in a positive way, it means I've opened up energy for other beings to take on their passion, which is no longer my passion.
Exactly.
And it strengthens the circle.
I love that. I'm always like, I don't do budgets. There's someone out there who's passionate about budgets, and I'm just going to leave them all that space.
Right.
And ask for their help. All right. Is there anything else that folks are like sitting with or would love to spend a little time on together as a group?
I just wanted to share that was a great conversation, and it really brings to mind my experience as a consultant, because definitely what you say yes and no to is completely tied to your income at that moment. And I learned over time, in the beginning, I would say yes to everything that would come to me because I didn't have the confidence to believe that I could only focus on what I really wanted.
Yeah.
But over time, and I was thinking when you were saying, Adrienne, about sitting in a meeting and being distracted, I started paying attention to those moments, and I started paying attention to my stomach, how it felt when I saw the RFP or I saw somebody refer me to an opportunity. What did my gut say at that moment? And I started noticing that sometimes my stomach would clench, and other times it would be completely expansive. And I started being like, okay, if it clenches, maybe it's a no. And it was such a clear bell for me when I received the call as an invitation to apply to Windcall. At that moment, it was like, yes. This is what I need to be doing right now. And it was very clear from the very beginning, as opposed to those other opportunities, which were very fruitful in terms of, a large project to engage in that would have meant money. And my gut was clenching. And it was telling me, yes, it might be a good opportunity financially, but it's not what you need to be doing right now. And you need to be giving space to really conjure what you need and where you need to be right now.
That's great. And I think that it's like tuning a piano or tuning any instrument. Like the more you listen to those subtle signals, the better you get at reading what your system is telling you. And I definitely had that, like, I walked away from a scenario where every time I was in it, I was just like, but it was money or whatever. And walking away from it, I was just like, I feel so much more free, and that freedom energy generate something. And I actually, to bring it back into this electoral moment, I actually feel like this is one of the things we're going to have to get really good at. Is in my circle right now, everyone's just posting a million additional things to be upset about and frustrated about. Look, he did this. Look, he did that. Look, he did this. And it feels more important than ever that I'm actually able to take my attention off of that, because I'm like, I'm not surprised by any of the negative news there. It's all exactly what I expect to happen. How do I keep focused on the work that I'm doing and building up the people I'm building up? And like, I'm really putting myself on a media diet, like how much of social media, mainstream media, and other things, because I recognize that energy, I have to say no to that in order to continue saying yes to the communities I'm working with. And see it as a mindfulness practice, right? Or even when I get frustrated by something, really think, who's doing great work on this already? And donate to them or figure out how I can resource them, rather than just sitting in my house being like, the apocalypse, it's always the apocalypse for someone. And it's also always like a time to be generating the worlds that we want. So, yeah. Yes. Anyone else want to say? We have time maybe for one last inquiry or.
I just wanted to say that this question of engaging in media and really hard news about the world has been on the top of my mind as well. And I feel like some days, like, I don't need to know anymore, but I also don't want to disconnect. And I think I'm having trouble finding the balance between those two extremes also. Because I think the way it's worked for me has been like, when I realize it's too much, then I just don't read anything for some amount of time, but then I come back and I engage just the way I was. And so that's definitely been on the top of my mind in terms of how to stay connected to what's happening in the city I live, in the state where I live, in the country where I live, but also elsewhere, and but also not doing that at the expense of being able to be centered and to do work here. So I just wanted to echo that that's been on my mind.
It's a big deal right now. And I would say that I've developed a set of practices that go along with taking in news that have been really helpful to me. So when I hear news that someone has died, or like following the news out of Syria, out of Aleppo, I have a whole altar for the dead that I've set up, that I go and light candles and say the names into, because it's like I feel there's a responsibility as a human being for receiving this knowledge and receiving this grief, and I want to be able to hold it and recognize that it's not of most use for me to stop everything I'm doing, and sometimes it is, like when I heard about the Oakland fire, I just had to stop everything else and just grieve. And the other night for Aleppo, I had to stop and grieve. But then there's also this practice. I set up a candle, started burning, say those names, and it really helps so much to know that I have that practice. And the media diet piece also feels really important to me. Like, I've been changing my algorithm on social media stuff by unclicking or unfollowing certain things, so that I get my news directly from, I look at BBC and the New York Times and Al Jazeera as places that I go to. So as opposed to, I think, what was happening, which was just like anytime people would post any news on Facebook, I'd be like, news, and go into this like reaction. And I find that it doesn't help me to have my news mostly coming from Facebook unless it's from people who are action oriented. So they share it along with do this. Mm-hmm. And so I really look at, Rebecca Solnit, I think is really good at that. Dallas Goldtooth is good at that. Who are some of the other people? Kiese Lehman is really good at that. It's just like posting here, Alicia Garza is good at that. Like posting, here's something that's happened. Here, go do this. So yeah, I think that those are some practices, so that I'm like, I don't want to be disconnected and live in a different bubble. But it does help to say, I'm going to give it 5 minutes at the beginning of the day to sort of see what's happened in the world according to New York Times and BBC, and then I'm gonna get my work done. And then I'll check back in at 1 o'clock and kind of see if anything else has happened, and I'm gonna get my work done. I think that the work we're called to do is more important than reading the news. There's something about like actually being able to feel what we know, and I think we have to learn to have capacity to feel what changes are happening in the world right now, so that we can actually respond from a really deep and visionary place. So I think that's our time. And I'm really, really, really grateful that y'all spent the last hour and a half of your miraculous life in this way. I hope it was of use to you and serves your life. And I hope we get to interact in person sometime soon, this next year.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. You just dropped so many gems with us. I really, really appreciate it. Definitely, we have recorded the session, so we I'll be looking for a way to post it on the website so that people can have access to it. And I know people have asked for these recordings to be able to share with their own organizations. So if you want to set up also a time to share with your colleagues, that's something that we can do as well. And definitely call us if you want to continue these discussions with us in the future. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.